now we're going directly to our wonderful webinar, How Can Digital Innovation Help Tackle Climate Change and Power Sustainable Development? Hosted by Jean Kelly, member of the European Parliament, member of ITER Committee, EPP Group Rapporteur on the SME strategy and board member of SME Connect. Thank you that you take your time for this. I know, and everybody knows it from the Brussels stakeholders, that you are very active for SME topics, that you are also engaged in the Green Deal. And I think this is important because SMEs are thinking always in generation, normally in family businesses. So the honest merchant is very important, that you are working sustainable and that you are also not only working for you, that you're also working for the next generations. And thank you very much that you are here now today. And I pass over to you for the welcome and opening. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heitz. It's always a pleasure to work with you and SME Connect. And I compliment you on all the great work you consistently do. You don't come and go, you're here all the time on behalf of SMEs. So it's a pleasure to speak to you today on what I consider a pivotal discussion on the power of digital innovation to tackle climate change and strengthen sustainable development. I welcome our respective panelists to today's webinar, the first episode of SME Connect's new series, SMEs Go Green for the Future. I like it. In the early stages of the pandemic, many businesses wanted to know how they could better monitor and manage their operations and make sure that certain critical tasks were still completed on time without having to rely on the physical presence of workers. This brought with it an acceleration of interest in efficiency and sustainability. The starting point in this acceleration was understanding how and where energy is consumed, lost, or wasted. And this is where digital technologies are key. Performance monitoring sensors, software that can connect operations with IT systems, automation and analytics will all equip organizations and individuals alike with the ability to better manage and optimize their environment, whether at work or at home. The good news is that most of this digital automation technology already exists, so no need to reinvent the wheel, just use it. The importance of SMEs cannot be overstated. Europe's 25 million SMEs employ approximately 100 million people and account for more than half of Europe's GDP. Digitalization offers several benefits to SMEs. It presents new opportunities for them to offer digital services and products, which is going to grow and grow into the future, especially post-COVID. And they can, of course, through that, expand market access. However, SMEs still need support to access information, skills, and technology. As the backbone of the European economy, it is crucial that we can facilitate as much access to finance and funding for SMEs as possible, including easy access to R&D funds and providing enhanced technical support so that they can accelerate and take advantage of the green and digital transformation. We also need to remove any barriers to green growth and eco-innovation to ensure that the Green Deal is an economic opportunity for SMEs. In 2020, businesses and organizations discovered how quickly they could advance their digital transformation to provide business continuity and resilience in the midst of the global pandemic. This digital journey needs to continue now to deliver much needed efficiencies, productivity improvements, and future resilience in order to create jobs and boost economic growth, whilst simultaneously helping to drastically reduce our impact on the planet and ultimately put a stop to climate change. To conclude, I would like to thank everyone for joining us here today. I would also like to thank SME Connect and you, Dr. Heitz, for the opportunity to host this very important topic. And I really look forward to hearing the input of our distinguished panel and above all, to see us making progress in this area for all our SMEs over the next few years. Enjoy the discussion ahead and thank you very much indeed. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly, that you gave us now this brief introduction. I think you tackled several points we will discuss now in the debate with very interesting speakers today. I think we will enjoy this debate really, and I think it is really the most important topics together. The Green Deal with the digital future. And if we bring both topics together, there will be an innovative solution for a better future, perhaps not only to save the future, for a better future. And now we're going directly to the debate. The first speaker will be Annika Hedberg, Senior Policy Analyst and Head of Sustainable Prosperity for Europe Program, European Policy Center, co-author of Towards a Green, Competitive and a Resilient EU Economy, How Can Digitalization Help? I read your paper with pleasure. It was very interesting. And I think you're covering a lot of these points we heard already. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation. The EPC European Policy Center, we've worked extensively over the years on looking at how better management of data and digital solutions could contribute to addressing our sustainability challenges, support climate action and environmental protection. And what we've seen through the work that we've done is that Europe is a hub for innovative new solutions that can contribute to greater sustainability. And numerous businesses, including SMEs, are developing sustainable solutions that are driven by or benefit from digitalization. They're using digital solutions to improve their own business models, or they're using digital solutions like apps and online platforms to find customers for their sustainable solutions and to grow their business. And it's from this context, I'm very delighted to join you today and share some thoughts. I'll start by saying that we're amidst 3 planetary crises. In addition to climate crisis, our nature and biodiversity are under threat, and we have a serious chemical and waste crisis on our hands. And we know that we need to find ways to address these crises urgently. We even have the global framework for action, direction for travel, which is set out in the Paris Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals. And we obviously have the EU's own goals and commitments for environmental protection and for reducing our emissions with an aim to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. So we know where we need to go. The challenge, as so often, is how do we actually get there? And this is where digitalization offers very interesting possibilities. While we've been promoting the green and digital transitions in Europe for a long time, for way too long, these have been seen as 2 separate transitions. When it comes to policies and public spending, we haven't always been good in ensuring that data and digital solutions are used to address our sustainability challenges, to bring about a real change in our economy and society. And now, just imagine if we did use the power of digitalization to solve our greatest challenges. Just imagine if the current political focus on the twin green and digital transition in the context of the Green Deal, as well as in the context of our recovery efforts from Corona crisis, just imagine if this political focus on the twin transition would really lead to aligning these agendas and creating a framework that encourages businesses, but also cities and people to turn digitalization into a real enabler for sustainability. What great prospects there would be. There's enormous potential in using digitalization. And when I'm talking about digitalization, I'm really talking about using data and different digital solutions to accelerate the transition to environmentally and socially sustainable economic model. There are great prospects to use digitalization to bring about system-wide transformation and create food, mobility, energy systems that operate within the planetary boundaries. We can use digitalization to address global warming, environmental challenges such as pollution and the loss of biodiversity. And we can use digitalization to enable greener business models and lifestyles, including more sustainable production and consumption patterns. And I'll just take 2 examples. If we look at energy system transition, we can see that digitalization offers many possibilities for enabling smart grids and demand response, and as such empowering consumers to play a more active role, especially with improving energy efficiency. Blockchain offers interesting prospects to help producers and consumers contribute to the clean energy transition, including development and uptake of renewables. If, on the other hand, we wish to make our production and consumption patterns more circular, digital solutions can be used to improve design of products, design and manufacturing processes, usage of products, reuse, recycling, and remanufacturing of products, and ultimately also waste management. We can use digital solutions like AI and 3D modeling to improve design of products and production processes. And online platforms are already helping businesses, including SMEs, to develop circular business models like product as services. So we see that there's huge potential, and digitalization actually has the potential to disrupt the current linear take, make, dispose model, to reduce consumption of resources, even support dematerialization across the economy, and as such, help to reduce related emissions. And what is so great about these prospects is that what we see is that there are numerous examples of European businesses already using data and developing digitally enabled solutions to bring about a positive change for people, for business, as well as for planet. And while many of the solutions still wait to be scaled up, the prospects are certainly interesting, as the market for these solutions that help address climate change and environmental challenges is only growing in the EU and beyond. There are some concerns that the EU is falling behind in the digital race when it comes to, for example, use of AI and 5G developments, but the game is not lost. In fact, if we look at digitalization, it offers especially SMEs unprecedented opportunities to connect, access knowledge, more sustainable materials, as well as customers. This is on the scale that the SMEs never experienced before. Also, European businesses have notable expertise in, for example, industrial IoT that plays a major role in enhancing smarter use of resources, but also in blockchain that provides interesting prospects for increasing transparency in supply chains, and as such can help address one of the main challenges to achieving, for example, a circular economy. So how do we support SMEs in these efforts? SMEs have the possibility to be real champions of sustainable future, but we obviously do need a framework that allows for SMEs to benefit from digitalization when they transition towards more sustainable business models and continue to bring on the market sustainable solutions. The EU has several tools to guide and support European startups and SMEs. A good starting point is, for example, COSME program. But also digital skills is a key. It's worth to note that large companies and SMEs do not have the same resources to invest in reskilling programs or vocational training and thus adopt new technologies. And if this digital gap is not addressed, this can have significant implications also for achieving more sustainable business models. And third, I would mention the cost. Cost is an issue. For the time being, it's new solutions like using AI to improve design processes or 3D printing to optimize production. These are still very costly solutions. It would be great if available EU funding for digitalization would be targeted to developing and deploying digital solutions for enhancing sustainable development, to leverage further public and private support for needed solutions and help scale up these solutions. I'll finish off by saying that, well, I've obviously been very positive about the possibilities with digitalization. I should stress that we do not want digital revolutions, new gadgets, new digitally run operations for the sake of it. Data and digital solutions are instruments, and we want to make them real enabler, catalyst for addressing the biggest societal and environmental challenges we face. And we at EU, we should aim to become the best in the world in doing this. And obviously, if we wish to make digitalization a real enabler and catalyst for sustainability, we do need to address its own climate and environmental footprint. The twin digital and green transition, it offers enormous possibilities for climate, for environment, for economy, for society. And we are in a very good position to align the agendas and capture the benefits, but surely the journey has only begun. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your inspiring speech. I think you gave us really the details, what we are handling and touching with our debate. I think it's positive. Positive, I think it's always a good approach, but we have to know, of course, there's also energy problem. Also, the digital industry is producing energy and using energy and producing waste and so on, and other problems. But I think if you coming, because you tackled also a little bit the political framework, we coming to our next speaker, Dr. Björn Sören-Giegler, Senior Digital Innovation Officer of the European Commission, visiting professor for political economy at the Georgetown University. I think the Commission was putting the digitalization as one key factor for the green transition, or for the success of the green transition. I think how the Commission wants to do this, and are you ready to take over this legal framework to make it happening for our SMEs? Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and also for inviting me to this seminar. I've also shared for the participants a presentation, which I will not do right now because I thought it's much better to have a dialogue, a conversation. But as a background, there you have the official, presentation as well. So first, these are my personal views. I have to correctly say that. So I want to share with you, of course, the experiences. So I work directly with colleagues on the digital and green transformation, actually for several years. I personally started working on sustainability in the mid-90s. So when we discuss this, the first thing I want to say, this is not new, okay? We pretend as if this was invented a year or two ago. In Rio in '92, we had the global summit, and people have worked on digital and green for many, many years. What is, however, new and is this intersection. So the interlink, because as my colleague before already mentioned, a lot of people have worked almost, if I may say so, in isolation. So you either have experts working on sustainability, who actually traditionally have been very critical of digital and digitalization. And then you have people who've been working on digital or innovations and digitalizations, and their understanding of sustainability issues, biodiversity, climate change has not been so advanced, if I may say so. So the radical new thing, if I may say so, is to bring these two worlds together and to find where the intersections are and the interlinkages, because that's where the most benefits are to be gained. A big disclaimer, digital is not a panacea. So while digital has a lot of opportunities, we also have to be aware that digital will not be the solution for everything, will not just magically, help us between 2030 and 2050 now to reach all the climate goals we want. It's an important enabler, but the first thing is really what we work on directly is greening the ICT sector. So basically, we have two key pillars of the EU strategy. First is to really enhance the sustainability of the digital sector itself, which is responsible now for around 8 to 10% of energy consumption. You've heard a lot about Bitcoin and the increasing concerns about non-sustainable uses of technologies. Other thing people don't talk about and think about is just the cell phone. So the cell phone itself, just the production of the cell phone produces massive amount of CO2 emissions, and also the life cycles. So that basically the average life cycle of a cell phone now is about 2 years. So if we could just double the life cycle of cell phones, I heard some statistic, it's as if you would take 100 million cars from the street. So it's the first is, and then data centers, supercomputing. So basically, first of all, is to really enhance the sustainability of the digital sector. For this purpose, we have launched recently the European Green Digital Coalition. So this is a commitment by now 26 CEOs, companies, not just SMEs, but actually large IT companies and others, to become carbon neutral in the next, by 2030. And basically to work on the sustainability of the issue. And there, a really important challenge is greenwashing. Let's just face it, be clear. A lot of companies commit. However, how do you verify? What is a rigorous impact evaluation framework that you really know that this is basically for real, that this is in fact a real contribution to long-term sustainability and not just short-term gains. And in that extent, a key aspect we are working on also through this coalition is to develop a rigorous evaluation framework with civil society, with SMEs, with all stakeholders involved. The third point I wanted to mention is people. It's all about behavior change. It's human-centered approach to the digital transformation. I actually have written a blog post and posted on LinkedIn recently. What do we mean by that? Everybody talks about people-centered. Nobody defines it. Look it up. Where do you find? It's very hard. For 1,000 people mean 1,000 things for human-centered. Yeah, but what it means has to be explained, right? So, but one of the key issues is that technology is malleable. It's changed. You can change it, but you need to embed it and base it on people's real needs. And people, and now coming to SMEs, yeah, to very different needs of SMEs than, for instance, industry. And that's why in Europe, one of the key challenges we are very advanced in Industry 4.0, robotics. We're actually leading in the world. However, like even in Germany, you think about it, like a very small percentage of SMEs, in fact, have fully integrated digitalization into their business models, change their way they do business, and most importantly, change the way they interact with customers and clients. So there we have a lot to do, and I could also share this other paper we have done with the European Investment Bank on the role of innovation hubs to supporting SMEs in the actual digitalization. Another aspect here is it has a lot of risks. Digitalization is very uncertain. Anybody you talk to, there were case studies years ago written about that the economic returns, the financial returns of digitalization are not certain. They can either enhance it or they can actually have negative impact on your profits. So that's why it's understandable that many SMEs are actually cautious and don't right away want to jump into digitalization. That's why we have supported through COSME the digitalization of SME pilot program. So now coming back to our key topic of sustainability, digital and green transformation. So the Recovery and Resilience Facility. So if you know, we've been working very closely with all member states on integrating into the recovery plans of all the member states the green and digital transformation. So we have actually agreed, and it's mandatory, it's a real goal now, it's a real mandate, that all member states need to invest 20% of the funding for digital and 37% on climate change. So just this translates, so the digital component alone translates to 134 billion euros. So think about it. Now the member states are in charge of implementing the resilience fund, and how can they best leverage this funding to really enable the twin transition. And here we've been working a lot with member states on this, because the key challenge here remains is exactly this intersection that a lot of governments have. It's also, by the way, an organizational challenge, because sometimes the component which comes on sustainability comes from the Ministry of the Environment, and the one which is in digital is hosted in the Ministry of Economy. And so basically those plans need to be adjusted. But I think it's very important for everybody to know that now we have this unique opportunity of the Recovery Fund we have very strongly advocated that digital and green should be at the core and the center of the recovery fund, to this notion of building back better, if you may say so. And but this needs now to be implemented. And the last point, and then I finish, is actually SME financing, access to finance, and for this topic, so, and startups as well. So we have basically done a very rigorous market analysis for clean tech. So digital clean tech. And what we could see is that there is a very important investment funding gap. So while everybody talks about digital and clean tech, there is very little funding available from the private venture capital. There's a basically global markets between 18 and 19 billion dollars, whereby we have around 22, 23% of investments in Europe, but a lot of investors prefer to invest in much easier investments, say software, like things which have much higher returns in the short term than digital and clean. I'm sorry, I have a little background noise. So, okay, so basically, pardon for this, but I think this last point is very important, that everybody makes very high level commitments. We need to ensure that there's real funding and incentives, and that we work with SMEs and the private sector to strengthen investments into digital innovations. That's why we launched, Thierry Breton announced it, the Digital Clean Tech Investment Initiative, which specifically is focused to providing risk financing for highly innovative startups that actually develop these AI, blockchain, IoT applications, which then SMEs and others can use. Let me stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think this was very, very good points. I think first, of course, the center is of the problematic or the solution is the human and this human behavior. We can, digitalization is not like a wonder pill that we become slim or healthy, but I think we have to work on ourselves. It's not so easy. And the second thing is, of course, what you also say, you understand SMEs very well, how to bring them to the technology, how to use them, how to handle the transformation. I think the COVID-19 was a catalyst. I think many of SMEs are rethinking perhaps to be not so critical to digitalization like before, because it makes them also resilience against such crises. And it's a chance now to add this and to merge it with the green targets. And now we're coming to somebody, to the next speaker, Daniel Weiss, Head of Program Green Economy from Adelphi. You bring exactly together the civil society, the different partners, or you have also several articles about SMEs, how they can introduce and transform them in this digitalization and in green way. But it's always together with the customer, with the clients, with the society, with the politicians. And please, share your experience and knowledge with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Kelly, and also to SME Connect. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and also a warm welcome to the audience. So you touched upon it, Horst, that we at Adelphi were working with, and I would say for SMEs on several sustainability topics. We're a political consultancy based in Berlin, in Germany. In various projects, I would say, on sustainable supply chains, on circular economy, on sustainable entrepreneurship. So just to give you a brief glimpse, and I would say my input now is I would say it's based on practical observations and findings, more or less derived from our projects on the ground, if you will. So I would like to share a few observations that maybe can help, how SMEs can benefit from a joint perspective on digitization and sustainability, what current challenges are, and what I think potential solutions and support measures for SMEs could be. So my first observation is that what we see frequently and more often, to be honest, is that data and digital solutions for climate change and also other sustainability topics, they go hand in hand. They need each other, and what is of vital importance is that SMEs must be supported to be part of this and to be able to approach both. Why do I think this is important? So in many projects we carry out for ministries, for example, on sustainable supply chain management or circular economy, digital technologies, many of them have already been mentioned. Basically, I don't know how to say that, maybe the enabler or the glue connecting companies together in a value chain, if you will, and through data and increased transparency. That's what we see in many projects. And if you look at it through the lens of a circular economy approach, of course, that means the digital services, they are the basis for smart maintenance, for smart repair, for smart use. We carry out lots of projects in the textile sector where we try to link circular economy approaches to and digital solutions. In a supply chain perspective, what we see is digital data platforms are increasingly important to measure and compare performance, environmental performance, for example, with regard to CO2 emissions. And what we particularly see is, for example, when it comes to supply chain management, is that we see a high demand for collaboration. That would be actually one of the highlights I want to make, and the points I want to make today is the need for more collaboration between different actors. I think you see it everywhere that more and more companies pledge to become carbon neutral. You see there is a political debate behind it, and we see increasingly, we faced it in Germany just a few weeks ago, and now in the Netherlands, also the courts who rule in favor of more ambitious CO2 emission approaches of companies, and the politics in general. And so when you look at carbon neutrality, it's a must for companies, and what it involves, it definitely needs to involve the entire supply chain. And this is challenging from a digital technology perspective, from a data availability perspective, but also from an investment perspective. And I think at least in our projects, what we see is that it in many cases it involves smaller companies being part of the value chain of larger companies, and they are also requested to collect data, to compile data, and to report to larger companies. And of course, what should be avoided, but which is in my observation sometimes at least still the case, is that this request for data is being passed down to the smaller companies, and they're overwhelmed with these requests. And I think if you look at what is needed, I think what we see in our projects is that there is a challenge and a need for which digital tools can help collect and manage data along the entire supply chain, the value chain. How are companies, in particular smaller companies in these value chains, how are they able to collect this data? And when you go further and you identify improvements or improvement needs, who is in a position to bear the costs or to invest in measures to achieve, for example, a better energy efficiency, reduction of CO2 emissions? I mean, and this in particular, I think, as I said, if you look at it from a value chain perspective and a holistic perspective, you have to address the question, who's bearing the costs at the end. So these are just a few challenges, and what I think now as my first conclusion for the first observation is, what I think we need and what we're constantly also pushing for is more collaboration on a company level, that larger companies engage with their suppliers to ensure that data is available, that data can be managed, that technologies are available, digital technologies to collect data, but also digital technologies to then achieve improvements, environmental improvements. So I think this is what I think is needed. Another element that we might want to discuss afterwards is the need for more collaborative platforms. So how do you collect data? Who's collecting data? And how do we organize that? We have carried out a few projects here in Germany in the textile sector, and it has always been a challenge for us to understand information and data flows and to make sure that data is handled in a way that it's available for everyone, but companies who feed in data are not burdened by too many obligations. To give a few insights into that. So my second observation is that when it comes to SMEs, digitization and sustainability, I think we need better metrics and indicators also to link the two topics, to link digitization and sustainability. We all know there is a stringent global demand for sustainable business conduct at the European level. We recently, or we just see the discussion on the draft of the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. We see the planned due diligence legislation from the European Commission, and we also have the EU taxonomy. So we see an increasing web of regulation that is affecting business and the way business is supposed to be handled in the 21st century. And what we also see in our projects, and many projects actually start this way, is that SMEs are actually increasingly facing requests for sustainability information based on what I've just mentioned, for example. I mean, legislation or requests from companies. As I said, oftentimes from larger companies that they're directly involved with, and also from financial institutions. So there is a need to collect sustainability information also on the side of SMEs, even though they may not directly been addressed by by these legislations that I've just mentioned. So there is a demand on the SME side. What I also see is there is a huge variety of methods to assess companies' impacts on society, people, and nature. And I think we've improved a lot. If you look at the first, I mean, we at Adelphi, we work with companies on environmental management systems, and in the 90s there was a large debate on efficiency gains, on end-of-pipe solutions, and I think we've moved well beyond that. And we are now looking at sustainability, I think, from a more integrative and holistic perspective. And also this should be addressed in of course metrics and KPIs. And I think it is important, and I think Annika, you also touched upon that in your presentation or your speech. Because companies need to understand the complex challenges they face. I mean, we talk about climate change, but if you look at the planetary boundaries concept, there are several other environmental challenges that are pressing that companies need to deal with. And you can look at them in a singular way, but they're actually at the end they're intertwined and interlinked. So companies face a very complex set of challenges, and I think we're on a good way. We are on a way to also addressing this in the way we use metrics and KPIs. But nevertheless, I think there is still a way to go, and it needs to involve smaller companies. And two things I'd like to say with regard to this is, the first one is, I think we're still lacking, I would say, clear transformation pathways for companies, also smaller companies, that go beyond just metrics or KPIs, and that basically give smaller organizations a better understanding of the way they're heading and the direction they have to take. I think this is something we we need to do. We have this in a few sectors which have been pressured by legislations or stakeholders, but I think we need a better, if you will, narrative or transformation narratives and pathways for companies. And I think secondly, I've mentioned this legislation for some good reasons, because it's always a matter of administrative burden and the amount of administrative work companies can handle. But SMEs are not directly covered by this legislation, but in a way they're affected anyway. So I think we need to be aware of the fact that SMEs are part of the equation, are part of sustainability reporting, of circular economy solutions, and we need to reflect that also in our policy approaches and also the way we support companies. So this with regard to my second observation, and just maybe quickly a third one, we also carry out lots of work in regions beyond Europe, in developing and emerging countries, and what we see there is it's actually a very, and that's I think is very interesting for us. We see the huge role SMEs can play in bringing digitization and sustainability together. We have many great examples where entrepreneurs in Africa come up with either high-tech solutions, high-tech digital solutions, for example, using AI for better rice farming or other solutions, but also, let's say, low-tech solutions, very pragmatic solutions. How can you link waste collectors with companies in order to make sure that the waste goes into a recycling loop? So you have a very we see very interesting and great examples of startups, of entrepreneurs outside of Europe, and I think that's also a point I would like to make, that we should also look beyond. I think it's clear that Europe can do a lot and is doing a lot, but that we see many great examples also outside of Europe. And one last thing or observation, or one last remark on this observation is, what we see is, and I think that's also something that I think is important when we work with SMEs, is the way we support them and the way we engage with them. And what we do in our projects is that we have a very comprehensive stakeholder engagement process with these companies and with these entrepreneurs that starts with workshops, boot camps, then it goes further to digital innovation accelerators, where we try to sharpen the ideas they have on sustainability and digitalization, and then we also focus on cross-regional exchange between innovators. So this is what we do, and this would be my third observation. Thank you.
Thank you very much that you share your experience with us. I think you touched points we have also to deal with many other topics, how you can help SMEs to introduce new technology. And I think cooperation is one of the key, and that big companies and SMEs are partners in these points in the supply chains is one of the elements where they have to work together. I think it's also very important if you say about data. I think it's a little bit older, this statistic, but for several years, only 50%, less than 50% of the SMEs had their own website, and we're speaking about data collection. So, I think they are really behind, and sometimes we are faster than SMEs can act. And the last thing, what was also very, very important, I think we forget, if you're making regulations, if you want thinking only about the big companies, that it's always also have an effect of SMEs. But we have normally on European level an SME test who is not working from my perspective, but I think this is a huge problem. Now we're coming to Karina Stan, Director of EU Policy and Head of Brussels Office of the Developers Alliance. Apps, everybody using them? Everybody using them with his smartphone or a computer? How you are part of the solution? Please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, well, software developers are driven by the aim to make a better world and to create solutions that solve various problems. And it doesn't have to be always, at a bigger scale, but also, small targeted solutions that can improve people's life. And tackling climate change is about that, solutions at both large and small scale. And so they are part of the joint efforts to address the climate crisis. So they play an important role in the digital and green transformation of the economy, whatever their place of work is. They may be employed in different types of companies or entrepreneurs, but also in their, capacity as citizens in their communities. Digitalization and sustainability, they go hand in hand. One objective doesn't exclude the other. On the contrary, I'd say digital solutions are enablers for a more sustainable economy. And for that, a coherent approach across policies and regulatory measures is required. And I want to insist on that. So we have ambitious digital startups and SMEs that provide advanced digital solutions. And what they need is a good investment in business environment within the single market. But then we have the large mass of so-called traditional SMEs that need to embrace digitalization and be sustainable at the same time. And what they need is, the right incentives to go through this transition. And it's not only about uptaking the digital solutions, new technologies, but it may involve a significant transformation of their business model. Also, the right incentives should be offered to new entrepreneurs that are growing new types of businesses, which are fitted to the digital and green economy. And here I want to mention a special mention, on the enabling role of platforms. We should recognize that. On creating the right, I talked about the right investment and business environment within the single market. So we need the synergies between all measures at both EU and national level. This is essential. And of course, we welcome the EU commitments on there are a lot of announcements, funding, targeted programs, digital innovation hubs comes into my mind, very good proposals, and we would like to see that happening, of course, working for startups and SMEs. The renewed SME strategy that was published last year, unfortunately, it became outdated because of the COVID crisis. But it rightly, I went through it recently, and it rightly identifies a series of challenges that European SMEs are facing in this twin transition. But it remains a problem. I mentioned all these programs, investment measures, and so on. We have on the single markets career front, we have, on the reduction of red tape. There is not too much change, unfortunately, yet. We have, recently the new better regulation strategy proposing one in, one out principle to cut red tape, but it was published, after a first series of critical proposals were already adopted. And so we're looking forward to more efforts from the EU and the member states in eliminating the obstacles against the single market. And the current debate, for example, on the digital files show that achieving harmonization at the EU level still remains a tussle, unfortunately. There were mentions on data and AI, and indeed they are critical in a sustainable transition. On data, the free flow of data is extremely important, because to ensure the connection between different areas in order to find the best way to utilize it, to identify new solutions. For example, data analytics with machine learning tools is already effective in many sectors, from agriculture to spatial planning, transportation, fraud detection, and so on. gathering granular data and efficient analysis and identifying complex patterns and based on that making useful predictions, that is good for a sustainable approach. And also I would give an example on RegTech. It's a good example of utilizing machine learning in automating compliance and providing insights, for example, on crop compliance maps. So data is very important. So the appropriate data governance framework that removes the legal and technical barriers is vital here. And similarly, I'll say certain regulations, if they are not fit for purpose and disconnected from all this coherent approach, they risk to undermine, both objectives. And I will give maybe a trivial example, but let's consider the energy consumptions of different smart devices. Well, it's not only about hardware here. There could be, significantly less efficient power consumption if we don't have, without ensuring the necessary level of control of the performance of the operating systems. So if we have, for example, provisions in a certain piece of legislation affecting the level of control of the operating systems, because sometimes we see that, certain policies objectives are followed in silos, and the policymakers, they don't put in balance, the right trade-offs. They miss some, and they miss some unintended consequences. And here I can only think about the role of good quality impact assessments to ensure this. Another example, AI applications. They can be very useful for informing and encourage responsible consumer behavior. For more, one could incentivize, nudge consumers to make good decisions toward more sustainable consumption. But if we have a rigid regulation, for example, that could easily prohibit the development and use of such AI applications out of abundance of precaution. So we need, that's why I'm insisting on the need to have a holistic approach, on each piece of legislation when we are following these two major policy objectives. I will add very quickly two important aspects in the debate, and they were mentioned before me. The private-public partnerships, very important in many areas, and startups and SMEs absolutely should be involved. And green public procurement is another area where startups and SMEs should be welcome. And last but not least, of course, let's not forget skills. Education, reskilling are essential. And here the technology industry should be seen as an ally. And there are good, I can think about, good private initiatives coming from large companies, but to the benefit of individuals, but also to the benefit of small companies. And again, in this area, we can have, we have already, but we can have more private public partnerships. So in the end, I will just conclude that it's all about a holistic approach and the right mindset, and it's a joint effort to achieve this.
Thank you very much. I think I can summarize it. We need also smart legislation that we can have smart apps. Otherwise, it must work together. And I think, of course, public-private partnership, this is for the Commission also very interesting. I think we should work more together because, and I think we should have also a target when we should have this finalized for the SMEs, the transition of digitalization, because we have for everything plans and deadlines, but not for this. And I think education is key for this. Now we're coming to the last speaker for this debate route, our Sala Public Policy Director, Head of Process of Office, Facebook. You are mentioned, in fact, indirectly many times, big companies, partners. You are, in fact, an infrastructure provider. You are some of these big players who can be part of the solution, but you're using also, of course, we heard also ICT and everything has to become green, the industry by himself. What is Facebook is doing here? And is there also, do you have in these strategies you are doing for the green transition also SMEs in mind? Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for having me here today. Very interesting to listen to all of you speaking. And I'm trying to also reflect in my remarks some things that you said. Representing American company, but being very European myself, I'm really proud of saying that the EU is, and I think that it also will be the leader in the sustainable transition of our economies and also societies, as we have heard here also today. And it will take all sectors of industry and all parts of society to make this transition a success. Including companies such as Facebook, and we fully recognize and understand what huge responsibility we have. The Commission's European Green Deal, or the EU's Green Deal, provides, first of all, visionary strategy for how to transform current climate and environmental challenges into economic opportunities for the whole continent. And I hope that it leads the way also, of course, globally. But now we need more action, and that requires everyone's commitment. That's why we as a company, we are fully committed to supporting the European Green Deal, which we believe actually provides also the action plan towards a more sustainable and climate neutral Europe by 2050. It could be even earlier. Also, at Facebook, we believe that climate change is one of the most urgent issues facing the world today, and we are acting now to transform our business. But not only that, we are helping by our business, with our business users of our platforms to do the same. And yes, we believe that technology and innovation can help tackle climate change. We believe we can be an example of leadership by embedding sustainability across all parts of our business. Already in 2011, Facebook was one of the first companies to commit to supporting our facilities with 100% renewable energy. We are proud to say that as of 2020 already, Facebook's global operations, including our data centers and our offices, are now supported by 100% renewable energy. And we have reached the net zero emission. While this is a big achievement, climate science shows that we also need to take action beyond our own operations, as we have also been hearing today, to make progress on climate change. We have now set ourselves the ambitious goal to reach net zero emission for our whole global supply chain by 2030. And this means we will continue to focus on our efficient design, work closely with suppliers to set their own emission goals, and also identify innovative technologies that will allow us to further reduce our carbon footprint. And our net zero ambitions will create new opportunities for us to partner with organizations in Europe and also with different businesses to address these challenges. We also want to contribute to this transition to the European Green Deal by giving all businesses, including SMEs, tools to grow, increase demand by giving citizens access to verified climate science, and greening our European operations, and particularly our European operations and supply chains. chain. We have more than 400 million companies, mainly SMEs, using our platforms only in the EU. And that's why we also understand the huge responsibility we have, that we can not only act ourselves, but we also need to support other companies, customers, individuals who use our services, and also make this transition as equal as possible for everyone. Because as you know, our platforms are free to use for customers and everyone. So that's why we also understand what is our responsibility. So we are really looking beyond ourselves. And our aim is to help our tens of millions of European business users also transform their business to become more sustainable. And SMEs are a big part of this. As we all know, accounting for almost 98-99% of all enterprises in the EU are SMEs, where the new jobs, for example, created. And vast majority of our platform users, as I said, are also SMEs. Without these small companies, scale-ups, medium-sized companies, I don't believe that Europe can really achieve its net zero targets. And we all understand the importance of sustainability and like what kind of a competitive advantage is also attached to it. I would also like to react to what Björn said here, that our services serve also as a gateway for stimulating and engaging on green awareness to trigger behavior change, which is of course important. Just to give an example, if you go to Instagram and put their hashtag circular economy, clean tech, sustainability, you can see that there are so many different campaigns, innovators, influencers who use those platforms. So it's for everyone and people from different age groups to actually not only inform one way, but engage with this very important information and make a change there. And last but not least, we also understand how important it is for people to have access to accurate information. One of the biggest lessons we have learned from COVID-19 pandemic, for example, is how powerful digital tools can be for connecting people to accurate information, experts, advice, and information during this kind of a global crisis like climate change also is. And that's why we are teaming up with researchers, academians, world, like VTO, universities, academias, and also healthcare authorities from different member states, but different authorities from different member states, to learn from them, to understand what they are doing, and also offer our services and also our data, which was mentioned here several times, for them to use and also spread the accurate information that is necessary. And also our responsibility is to make sure that on our platforms there is no misleading information, because we understand the responsibility for this equal transition is for everyone, and that's why we are also here today. Looking forward to if we have some time for a conversation. So looking forward to that. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I think we have. Thank you that you show also the perspective of a big player. I think how your efforts are and how you want to be part of the transformation and also in the discussion. I think there are many perspectives we learned here now from the different speakers. We have some key topics who we have to discuss now. And I think it's very important. Perhaps we starting directly, perhaps a question from my side. We have also questions from the audience. Please use the question and answer section downstairs on the button and ask, if you like, our speakers some questions. If you see now that we see how the SMEs can transform and also the industry can transform, digital and in the same way green. What is better, to regulate them or to give them, to force them or to give them attraction to go green and digitalize? What is now the way? What is now the impression now? What is really helping SMEs? So what is the best tool to reach these targets? Sometimes we have here always regulation pressure. Sometimes we have also financial attraction. Mr. Giegler from the European Commission, how are you thinking really you can make this transition? What is the tools you would like to use, or you're thinking they are efficient for this?
Well, thank you for this excellent question. I think it requires both. But one very important aspect, so we have launched recently also the Startup Europe Nations, which is also related to SMEs on the SME strategy to improve the enabling environment for SMEs in this transition. So as you say, SMEs have a lot of challenges already. So why should they put this as a new burden? You know, the last thing we want to see this to be a burden. And then second, I think what is important, for instance, in Germany, there's a group called Leaders for Climate Action, which has brought together, you know, best practices, like real leaders in the community that make a difference. So provide incentives for best practice, showcase SMEs that have been successful in this journey. And then second, I think it's also the bottom line. So basically, you know, SMEs sometimes they especially now they have to be resilient. They have to survive, right? They still have to be, they have to be profitable. So a key aspect here is that to be digital and green can, in fact, first it's real efficiency gains, yeah, particularly how you interact with your customers. So digitalization has proven to grow your markets and to engage with complete new audiences. And then increasingly also the green transformation is something what citizens are more and more demanding. So basically to see it as a new business opportunity, like change of business models, which is painful, which is difficult, which is challenging, and which might not, you know, be profitable in the short term, but in the medium and long term, yes. And that's why we play an important role through providing also incentives and finance, through access to finance. So we have the InvestEU, we work closely on the SME window, and we just discussed how we put into, for instance, the COSME program, a direct program towards digital and green, and to mainstream it into our financial instruments. Because, and that we give a guarantee, you know, in COSME we provide 70% guarantee rate from the European Commission. What nobody knows, unfortunately, because it's such an intermediate process, right? It goes to commercial banks, the commercial, then the SMEs, the ultimate beneficiary at the end never knows that this is European funding. But I think these financial instruments are also very important to provide incentives for SMEs in this transformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a practical approach, but I want to go also to Daniel Weiss. We heard, Daniel, something about how important public-private partnership is. We see that the Commission is trying to support SMEs. What is really the attractive incentives for SMEs to go green, and how has this an impact for their business?
I think I mean, thank you for the question. As Björn indicated, I think it's a mix of different measures, obviously. I think I wanted to come back to what I said earlier. I think in what we see in many ways, I think there is a need for support and maybe also a push, or call it a signal of the lead company in the value chain, for example. I mean, in Germany, for example, we talk about lightweight construction in the automotive sector, and the need to lower the CO2 emissions in that approach, this lightweight approach, in order to make sure that the lead company, an automotive company, is able to reduce its emissions and to meet its targets. And the way to engage suppliers obviously is by I think it's a two-way approach. It's firstly you commit them, or you ask them to meet new targets, for example, stricter CO2 emission targets in the supply chain, and you make it very clear. But on the other hand, you also provide support measures, and I think in let's say and we've talked about this earlier today. It's, of course, we are not talking about digital a new digital situation that has just started last year. It's a longer process, but I would say now that we have this link between digital solutions, for example, when it comes to the availability of data in the supply chain, and linked to how can you reduce CO2 emissions in industry processes in the supply chain, you need to be aware that smaller companies also need support. You can have stricter requirements, but on the other hand, you need support. And I think that's something that I would see. Of course, in addition to, I mean, we always talk about a smart mix of measures. I think that's what everybody wants, but I think it is important, in my view, what we see in our projects, that you see these value chains as a collaborative approach to making business, and to make sure that you have you demand something, but you also support companies. In German, it's called fordern and fördern, what we always say, and I think that's valuable here. Another remark on that, I mean, I've said that we need, in my view, a different set of metrics and indicators. When we talk to smaller companies, it's, of course, there are, I mean, also in Germany, they are the majority of companies, and they are highly innovative, they are highly skilled, highly capable. No doubt about that. But I think what we really need is also a clear picture on the pathway. Where do these companies are heading to? And I think as a political observer, I think what we've seen in the debate is, of course, there is some clarity, but I think there could be more clarity with regard to what is needed to actually transform our economy and business sectors. And I think, as I said, you see here, we had this court ruling in Germany. We now have it in the Netherlands, and it would be an entirely different debate. But one could argue, is that also because there was a lack of political decisiveness and let's say also willingness to show a clear pathway also to businesses and to smaller, including smaller companies. And I think this, in addition to what I said about collaboration, we need to have also an honest political discussion about it. Then also meaning we have to talk about different instruments that are available. That is my second point. Thank you very much.
I want to jump now a little bit to another aspect of this discussion. If you're discussing how digital can support the green ambitions, but when the industry or the ICT sector will become themselves green, because it's rising first, probably before it's becoming better. Annika Hedberg, you, in your paper, you say also that there are also problems with energy, maybe with waste. Do we have data? Is the efficient that we're saving so much energy and we are so much more smarter to become green with this? It's faster than the consumption of energy and resources are growing. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So obviously, when we're talking about and looking at greening of ICT, on one hand, we have the data centers. And there, I think already actually impressive efforts are being done to green data centers. And I would say that actually, unfortunately, many of the global companies are even doing a better job than our European data centers are doing in that regard, which is why obviously we see that the European Commission itself is pushing for this agenda and trying to make sure that we would be using much more renewable energy to power data centers, but then also that our data centers would become much more energy efficient. So the data centers are a big part of greening of ICT. But then on top of that, obviously, we have all the products, all the hardware that is also being used in our digital economy. And this is a huge challenge itself. So not only the energy consumption and the materials that are used, be it from smartphones or be it for our computers, but also the challenge that comes with the e-waste at the end of the life cycle when we're actually not able to recover the materials from this hardware. We're not able to recover, or we're not recovering, reusing the valuable materials that is out there. So there is a lot of work to be done to actually make the products themselves greener. And in that regard, I think that also interesting developments are happening. We see that the discussions around eco-design for ICT are taking place at the moment, where these eco-design criteria would have implications for durability, recyclability of, for example, smartphones. Very interesting prospects. We'll see where this goes. But then also is the question, and I thought that that was very interesting, what was mentioned by Björn Søren as well, on the financing for addressing this gap that we see at the moment for digital clean tech. And I think that that will be extremely important in trying to ensure that we in the future will have much more possibilities for companies themselves to invest in digital clean tech and clean their products. And so all the efforts that are going in that direction is certainly welcome.
Thank you very much. I think I picked this up because we heard before from Facebook that they are 100% green with their clouds. Now in Germany, only 30% of the cloud providers are green. So 70% are not green at the moment. Aura, you make this change. Do you think also that it's valid by your users that they say, oh, Facebook is green? Because it's not so that it's everywhere on Facebook it's coming, there's a green button, we are green, or something like the German railway is doing, we are running green. Facebook is very not so, it's doing something, but it's not announcing it so loud. Do you think it's really something what you say, you're doing this when people say, yeah, it's great that Facebook is doing this, please?
No, I feel that people are saying that you're doing greenwashing. I'm sorry, but that's where it is. Whatever we do, it's always there is something like this. So yeah, of course, we are happy to tell in this kind of events that what we are doing, but we also understand how important for us it is to help other companies, as we also hear today, and we are leading by example. That's of course super important. And we have been really testing different tools how we could do that. And we have brought together a network of sustainability-focused brands now to engage in a knowledge exchange and provide support on how they could be thinking about sustainability. And we have also partnered with our creative shop to brainstorm and test transparency campaigns focused on helping different sizes of businesses better explain their sustainability efforts. Maybe we should also be better at this. And we will continue supporting these sustainability aligned businesses to help them maximize growth and scale sustainability efforts, because I also think that I don't like that we speak about greenwashing. First of all, I think it's great if we are doing greenwashing. I don't think that there is something, it shouldn't be negative. But also when there is this kind of economic trigger there, I think it helps. And we will have more companies joining forces also from Germany.
Thank you very much. This is sometimes, if you're doing something, it's not good. If you're doing nothing, it's also not good. But I think, in fact, I think that this transition is coming now also from the big techs. Do you think that the big techs will be earlier be green than the SMEs, in fact, or what you're expecting for the future?
Yeah, I think we have the capacity to do that also. And I'm repeating myself, maybe saying that we have this responsibility. But also, I would like to give a very concrete example of a great company here in Belgium, I think, where most of us are, Urban Forests, which is this company that focuses or creates forest ecosystems in urban areas using native species that adapt well to local climate conditions. And we have this kind of a very innovative companies from all around Europe, like Planeta from Poland, or from Germany, mit Enkel und Kanten. So we have been really trying to learn from all different member states their good and leading examples. And what we have learned is that it can be something, it can vary from high clean tech company to really this kind of urban thinking ecosystems. And then some influencer who has in Malta like hundreds of thousands of followers, and then she can really get people triggered into thinking these things, for example, from the circular economy perspective. So it's our duty to lead by example. And yes, we have capacity to do that. We fully understand that. But that's why we are trying to create these innovative solutions for everyone to use.
Thank you. I think you are also then in a platform who is exchanging ideas, because if it's one idea in Malta, we can get it then from you, through you, also then in Germany. I want to go once again back to Björn Søren Giegler. Would it be not good that the Commission would work together with Facebook? If you hear the big players have to care about SMEs, the Commission has to take care about SMEs. So why not work together all?
Well, our European Green Digital Coalition is open. So you're invited to join. Like many other actually large corporations have joined as well. And the other aspect, thanks for the proposal. I think we do need a collective action, and Facebook could play an important role in raising the awareness. Like I'm now thinking about your users. So basically why make a poll or a survey or a Facebook Live session on this topic, because we need the support from citizens and SMEs, businesses, for this transition. And I want to be also very humble. Yeah, one issue we are facing a lot. Most people don't know about our programs. Like I'm sure you all haven't heard about the programs we have. So if we here, don't, so we have to do a much better job, if I may say so, to engaging citizens and SMEs, in fact. Yeah, about these programs, and there actually Facebook could really help, I think, to promote, not to promote, I don't want to say promote, to facilitate this dialogue, yeah, because it's a two-way flow, and we want to better hear from SMEs. And so maybe next time you have our seminar live streamed on Facebook, and we have, instead of maybe 50 or 60 users, we have maybe thousands. So just a proposal.
Count us in, because we need everyone. So.
But I think this is one of the key problems I face all with SMEs. They don't know what for excellent programs are there. And I think this is the problem. The Commission has the good ideas in the programs, but not can reaching out to the 25 million SMEs, so to all. So I think the cooperation would be good. That I coming to Karina Stan, and we coming also to the end. The apps providers, everybody has an app. What could be your contribution to this, to work, to reach out, to contribute to transformation? Could you make also a campaign with your members?
Oh, of course. As I said, app developers can contribute, from their, different roles that they play in the industry, and as I said, they are engaged, and a lot of them are, already aware, is this awareness of this crisis, and they, you know, a lot of them are want to contribute, and they are quite enthusiastic about that. And we hear about sustainable software, you know, how to develop principle to develop, you know, more sustainable software, not only hardware, and so on. So, and yeah, communication is key, and I can only agree with the fact that there are a lot of initiatives, because my mission is twofold. I mean, I'm representing, you know, the industry towards the institutions, but also on the other side, I'm informing, you know, the developer community on all the policy, the regulatory developments that are happening here in Brussels, and yes, the lack of communication is indeed a problem. They don't know about a lot of programs, a lot of investment opportunities, and about a lot of policy objectives. We need to as I say, it's a collaborative effort, so we need to have everybody on board.
Thank you very much. And I think that we're coming now also to the end. It's 6. I think it's a very interesting topic with different angles. I think I want to quote Ina Schieferdecker, director of the Fraunhofer Institute for Open Communications, and Dirk Messner, director of the Institute of Environment and Human Security of the United Nations University, that they say that sustainability can only succeed in the digital age. So I think this is one of the main things we have to say after this discussion, but not without SMEs, but also not without the support and with the big players and the policymakers. I think this is a common effort. What we learned also, we need there also that this is a business model that is also for SMEs attractive to become green and digitalized, that they need help. They must be somehow pushed and pulled in the same way. They need help, and then also, but I think a pragmatic approach is the best way. And I have to say thank you really much. It was very nice to speak with you. And in the end, if it's coming really something out, and I think this is one of the main problems, how to reach out to SMEs with all these good ideas and partnerships. I think Adelphi makes a very good job here, and we can learn from this. Perhaps also the Commission can learn how to reach out to SMEs there. We can work together with the communication channels of big players. We can work together also with the ideas of these many app developers who we have. And I think together we can manage it. I have a little bit this problem at the moment. It's too diverse, too separated, all these ideas. We have to come out of the silos together, solving these problems, because together we can manage it, and Europe can become a leading country of digitalization and greening together.